I never imagined that the badge my wife proudly carried would become the very thing that shattered our marriage. When she first joined police force, I supported her through everything, her long shifts, her exhaustion, the pressure she faced. I believed in her more than she believed in herself. But somewhere along the line, the woman I married disappeared behind a uniform I no longer recognized. She started coming home late, far later than any shift required. Her excuses became short, her tone sharp, and the warmth she once had for me faded into something cold and unfamiliar. One night, she left the phone on the table. A message appeared, short but loud enough to destroy me inside. Tonight was amazing. Same plan tomorrow. The sender was a fellow officer. My heart didn't break. It went numb. Instead of confronting her immediately, I watched quietly. I studied her overtime logs, her duty schedule, her location history. Nothing matched. She wasn't working late. She wasn't on night patrol. She was meeting him at a small diner outside town, always in her uniform, always with a man who wore the same badge she claimed to respect. I pretended everything was normal. I laughed at her jokes, cooked dinner, and kissed her goodnight. But inside, I was preparing something far colder than anger. I was preparing the truth. Over days, I gathered everything I needed. Photos of her meetings, discrepancies in her duty records, screenshots, audio recordings, every piece of dishonesty she left behind. And when I had enough, I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. I sent everything straight to internal affairs. 2 weeks later, officers knocked on our door. When she opened it and saw their badges, the color drained from her face. They addressed her by name and asked her to come with them for questioning. She turned to me, eyes wide, already knowing who had exposed her. That night, she stormed back into the house, trembling with anger and fear. "You did this to me," she shouted. I looked at her without a hint of regret and replied, "No, you did this to yourself. I just stopped pretending." She packed her bags in silence. She didn't ask me to stay, didn't try to explain, didn't even apologize. She walked out of the home she had already abandoned long before physically leaving it. And as the door closed behind her, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. Revenge didn't come through violence or rage. Revenge came through the truth she tried so hard to hide. She lost her badge, her reputation, her illusion of control, and she lost me. And I walked away with the only thing she could never take from me again, my self-respect. Weeks passed after she left, but the silence she left behind wasn't painful. It was cleansing. I didn't miss the arguments, the excuses, the constant suspicion. What I missed was a version of her that died long before the truth surfaced. The woman who once held my hand like she'd never let go vanished the moment she chose someone else's touch over mine. People talk about heartbreak like it's a thunderstorm, loud, violent, impossible to ignore. But mine was a slow snowfall, covering everything quietly until the world looked unfamiliar. And in that cold stillness, I realized something important. Sometimes losing someone reveals how lost you were with them. News about her started spreading quietly through our small town. Officers talk. Departments whisper. Her suspension became a topic in every break room, every patrol car. The man she cheated with didn't escape either. Internal affairs dug into both of them. She avoided contacting me, maybe out of guilt, maybe out of shame, maybe because she knew I wasn't the same man she could deceive anymore. One evening, she tried calling me. I watched the phone light up with her name, the same name I once thought I would grow old beside. I let it ring, not out of anger, but because I no longer felt the pull she once had on me. Her voice had no power over me anymore. The next day, I saw her by coincidence outside the station. She stood there in plain clothes, holding a small box, her personal items from her locker. No uniform, no badge. Her shoulders looked heavy, like she was carrying every lie she ever told. She noticed me, froze, and for a moment I saw the old her in her eyes, sad, confused, maybe even sorry. But apologies don't fix betrayal. They only acknowledge it. She walked toward me, hesitated, then quietly said, "I never meant for things to go this far." I looked at her, calm as ever, and replied, "You didn't lose me. You threw me away." She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just nodded, as if she finally understood that some consequences can't be undone. As she walked away, I felt nothing but relief. She was a chapter, one that ended badly but taught me more than any peaceful story ever could. I learned that trust is fragile, loyalty is priceless, and once broken, some things never return to their original shape. Life didn't get easier instantly, but it got clearer. I started focusing on myself, rebuilding the pieces she had cracked. I slept better. I breathed easier. My home felt lighter without lies echoing in its walls. Revenge wasn't destroying her life. Revenge was watching her destroy her own, and choosing not to follow her into the wreckage. I moved forward while she stayed trapped in the consequences she created. And that, more than anything, was justice. Time moved on, but life had a strange way of circling back to unfinished shadows. Months passed without a single message from her, and I honestly thought our paths would never cross again. I was rebuilding my peace slowly, piece by piece. My routine became simple again. My mind grew quieter. My heart felt lighter. But one evening, as I was leaving the grocery store, I heard someone call my name, soft, almost unsure. I turned and saw her standing near the parking lot. She wasn't in uniform. She wasn't confident. She wasn't a woman who once walked around like the world answered to her. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. Fragile. I just wanted to talk, she said, keeping her distance like she knew she no longer had the right to step closer. I didn't respond immediately. I let the silence stretch, because for the first time, she was the one uneasy, not me. She took a breath. I lost everything. My career, my reputation, my friends. No one looks at me the same anymore. Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't demanding. It was defeated. And for a moment, I searched inside myself for the old familiar sting of pain, the bitterness, the questions I once had. But all I felt was distance, like she was someone I used to know in another lifetime. She continued, I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed something I can't fix. But I never stopped thinking about you, about us. I looked at her, really looked at her. The guilt on her face was genuine. But guilt isn't love. Remorse isn't loyalty. And regret isn't enough to rebuild a marriage that she burned to ashes with her own hands. I'm not angry anymore, I finally said. But that doesn't mean there's anything left to save. She lowered her eyes, and for the first time since the truth came out, I saw her cry, not the dramatic kind, not the manipulative kind. Real, quiet tears that came from losing something she thought would always be there waiting. I wish I could go back, she whispered. I don't, I replied, and the honesty in my own voice surprised me. She wiped her face and nodded, accepting that the story she expected to continue had finally reached its true ending. Before walking away, she said something I didn't expect. You were the best thing in my life. I was too blind to see it. She left without asking for another chance. She didn't beg. She didn't push. She simply walked away, carrying the consequences she had earned. As I watched her disappear into the dim parking lot, I felt a strange clarity settle in. The past wasn't a weight anymore. It wasn't a scar I dreaded touching. It was just closed. Her betrayal didn't break me. It rebuilt me. Sometimes losing someone isn't a tragedy. It's a beginning.